In this edition of the Bucs Daily MinuteCast, we talk about the Bucs as they take on the Ravens tonight. What are some of the storylines there? The Bucs need Tom Brady to be Superman. He is the GOAT. He is the greatest of all time. Can he help propel this Bucs team over the top? And then we'll talk about the myriad of injuries on this Bucs team. We'll talk about all of that and more next on this edition of the Bucs MinuteCast. Keep it right here.
MinuteCast Media.
10,000!
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers MinuteCast starts right now.
Bucs on 3, 1, 2, 3, Bucs!
This is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers MinuteCast. Well, hello and welcome into this edition of the Bucs MinuteCast. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms. You can find this podcast on The Bucs Report. Check them out online, bucsreport.com. You can also find it on YouTube. Just search for The Bucs Report. And as always, you can find this podcast wherever you get your audio podcasts. Just search for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers MinuteCast. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Bucs MinuteCast. So it is game day as your Tampa Bay Buccaneers take on the Baltimore Ravens tonight. We need a big win. You know, like I talked about in yesterday's podcast, the last game against the Panthers was a must-win, and they fell short. This is a must-win game. The Bucs are, it's not all doom and gloom as you look at this team. The way people are talking about this team, you'd swear that the season was over and they lost. They still are tied for first in the NFC South as they take on the Ravens, who are also tied for first. So a lot of storylines out there. What they need is the heroics of Tom Brady to prove why he is the GOAT. He is the greatest of all time. We'll talk about that in this show, and then we will talk about the injuries. That is ultimately, the hitch, the linchpin, and that is the thing that is kind of starting everything off on the wrong foot with this Bucs team is the injuries. If everything went according to script, I think this team would be firing on all cylinders, but alas, it's not what's really at stake here. So just let's get it going here and talking about the Tom Brady. We need the heroics of Tom Brady. This is a story in The Athletic. Tom Brady would love to summon the magic one more time. He's done it before, of course, helping the Patriots navigate their way back from the slow starts of midseason lulls to position themselves for contention multiple times. He did it again in the 2020 during the first season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, directing a perfect December and title run. If ever the Bucs needed those iconic Brady heroics, it's now. They've reached their lowest point of the last two seasons, loser of 4 of the last 5, including 2 straight to inferior opponents in the Steelers and the Panthers. It's now, with their once game-changing defense floundering as age and roster turnovers take their toll. It's now, as the offensive herald as one of the most explosive in the league, looks like a shell of its former self, mustering half the points it did a year ago. So it is kind of an about face on this Buccaneers team. Almost unrecognizable as it was last year. But, like I talked about in yesterday's pod, there have been a lot of moving pieces. You don't have a lot of the different players out there. Most notably, you don't have Gronkowski out there. You're starting to see the effects of those big players, Ndamukong Suh, those kind of players that are not here. So you're starting to see those players missing, the effect that is having on this roster. So like I talked about, it is paramount that the Bucs pick up a win tonight. And you want to know why the biggest reason is because it's a moral victory for this team. What do I mean when I say that? It's easy to defeat a team that's horrible. They should have done it last week against the Panthers. What ultimately was the problem there? It was a trap game. You hear about it all the time. The Bucs, they lost to the Steelers and they thought, that sucked. We lost to a pretty good team there. But now we're going to take on the Panthers, who are horrible. There's no way that we can lose this game. guess what? They found a way to lose it. So that's what I'm talking about. They're going to need to come out quick. These depth players are going to really need to rise to the challenge and prove why they need to be on this roster. A lot of things that, weren't planned for in the beginning of the season. Rick Stroud writes, can confirm Bucs wide receiver Julio Jones is expected to play tonight versus the Ravens as reported by Sarah Walsh. Jones was listed as questionable with a knee injury and has only appeared in 2 games. He was said to be a game time decision, but you never know with Jones until he warms up. And those are 2 of the big acquisitions, Gage and Jones in the offseason, 2 players that, everyone said was going to push the Buccaneers over the top. They were going to be so stacked. They were going to be tripping over each other. They're so stacked. But the injuries started to mount, and these 2 big players that were picked up in the offseason have not played a whole lot because of injury. Hicks said earlier in the week he was super close to returning from plantar fascia injury he suffered week 2 at New Orleans. Bucs have downgraded Akeem Hicks to out for tonight's game versus the Ravens. So again, these are all the injuries that are surrounding this team. And, it's not optimal. You're hoping that a lot of these players that you pick up in the offseason are going to be able to rise to the challenge and help this team. So it's not the case. Other injuries to talk about, like I said, a myriad of injuries. Bucs Luke Gadecki, foot is out. Nick Leverett will start Thursday's night's game versus Ravens. Carlton Davis and Sean Murphy Bunting. Antoine Winfield, huge. That is the biggest loss for this Bucs team. Antoine Winfield Jr. brings such a big level to this game. Cameron Brate, Akeem Hicks, foot is doubtful. And as I talked about off the top there, Julio Jones looks like that he will potentially be in tonight. But, that's the biggest thing holding this Bucs team back is injuries, and it's nothing novel to say. There's a lot of different teams around the NFL that suffer from these same things. But the biggest problem is that Tom Brady likes to pass to players that he knows. He likes to hand the football to players he knows. And what's the biggest thing holding him back right now is he's dealing with a lot of players he's not too familiar with. And there's a lot of people that have kind of thrown him under the bus. So it said, maybe if you didn't go to Kraft's wedding, or maybe if you decided not to, to take a week off and spend time with your wife and kids down in wherever that was down in the Pacific there. So that's the things that's drawn into question here is if Tom Brady had not missed so much time away from this team, would he be more dialed in with the guys that he has out on the field? I think that a lot of times he likes to rest on the fact that he has 7 Super Bowls and he's the GOAT, the greatest of all time. And he is. No one can take that away from him. But, he did miss some kind of, big time with his team, And if you talk to Todd Bowles, he said, well, he didn't miss a whole lot anyway. I think that was just kind of, diminishing the fact that he did miss some time with his team. And that's going to be one of the things that's talked about after this season is that if Brady didn't miss this time with his team, would he be more in lock with what's going on with the guys on the field? He has his normal targets out there. He has Godwin. He has Evans. Evans dropped that one big pass out there. It's really hard to say anything bad about Mike Evans, considering all the great things that he's done. But this game tonight, this is kind of like, one of those prime time events. It's going to be on Amazon Prime. No pun intended. Well, kind of intended. So you're going to have a large audience watching this game. And, these are the kind of games that Brady's usually used to rising to the challenge for. You saw him do it with the Patriots for years. We need that from Brady tonight to kind of relive some of that former glory, to kind of say, I'm 45 years old, but F you all, I'm going to beat you. And that's what we want to see out there tonight, because that is the biggest thing about tonight is it's about the swagger that you can have on your team. That's what you ultimately need going out there is the swagger and the confidence to prove to everyone that I can do it. I am the greatest of all time. And let's hope for a big win tonight. All right, just a short Bucs Minute Cast for today. I want to thank you so much for joining me. I'll talk to you again next.